Hey friends, it's Michael Goldsman here back with you again. I wanted to make this video to share with you some of my thoughts about what it means to clear the root or the spiritual root or the karmic root of a particular issue. Many spiritual clearing techniques, including my own, make this claim that we're going to work more at or clear the root of an issue, though I have also found that this term, clear the root of an issue, can also really be misunderstood in terms of how it relates to the concrete benefits that we will receive from clearing work. And to describe this perspective may take a little bit of stepping back for a second to ask, what do we even mean by healing? You know, obviously at the very minimum, normal everyday way of talking about healing means the cessation of a particular problem or symptom, feeling better, if it's physical healing, if it's healing, financial healing, if it's a healing in a relationship, that there's somehow something better, maybe more loving, more abundant. We could say in spiritual healing work that healing means to reveal or to experience more of the true underlying divine qualities, divine nature within ourselves or within a particular context than what we were experiencing before. If we're experiencing, most of the holistic methods out there talk about that when you experience what's called a problem individually or collectively, that there's some sort of buildup of dysfunctional energy or a blockage, a lack of flow, a lack of harmony. These are big scale types of terms to describe what we could see looking at an issue more specifically. There might be these principles, flow, connection, being plugged in. These are some of the divine qualities that may be limited temporarily when we're experiencing a block or a problem. Okay, so when we say root cause of a problem, this gets to more of the spiritual way of discussing a particular issue. I would say, I've used this description many times before, that we are beings that we can describe as having 4 levels. This is just a very crude analogy, but we have a spiritual level, a physical level that is, right here, right now, where you're looking at me. This is the physical body, most dense aspect of our being. Right within that and just outside of that, you could say a little bit less dense than the physical, we have this emotional body. That's where our feelings go and feeling memories go. Just outside of that, we have a mental body. It's where our thoughts go. And just outside of that, we have what we might call a spiritual body. And this is the part of us that's more, it's less about this particular physical body and incarnation, and it's more potentially plugged into the transpersonal, the transcendent. It's been said before that the spiritual level of our being is where we might have psychic phenomena, or we might find answered spontaneous prayer or miracles, or we might feel a connection to an angel. Spiritual practice often tends to emphasize this particular area of the body. So if we look at ourselves from a larger soul perspective to say that, wait, this physical body that I'm in right now is not my permanent home, if you're open to this idea that we have been around the block before, we are eternal beings, each one of us, no matter what our belief system or background is, and the physical body changes over time. So one way of looking at root cause is saying, what part of us do we take beyond this physical life and physical body? And you might say, as we talk about that through the lens of the 4 bodies, the spiritual level, the spiritual body is more part of the underlying truth of our being. So when we talk about root cause, some people will say and will think that the root cause is really the spiritual cause. And the reason why that is true, with some asterisks after it, is because in metaphysical, mystical, spiritual healing work, the main root as to why there are problems at all within us, whatever the category may be, or within us collectively, is because somehow we have temporarily limited or blocked our experience or acknowledgement or consciousness of our true spiritual nature, of our true spiritual being. So in that sense, all problems are spiritual problems. There was a wonderful book written maybe 25 years ago now by Wayne Dyer, where he said that there's a spiritual solution to every problem. And I really like that idea. Spiritual solution. At the core of who we are, whatever the problem may be, we may be able to find that the root, in the way that I'm using it with asterisks and around it, I'll get to that in a second, the root is a spiritual issue. Okay, so the root, you could say, is our sense of separation from spirit, and that's really the origin of all problems. Not actual separation, but just sense of separation, forgetfulness, lack of consciousness of spirit. Okay, so these spiritual healing and clearing methods come in, and they say, okay, we're going to work at that level. That's including my own. We're going to work at that level. Now, first of all, working at the level of the spiritual is pretty rare and unusual. It's not something that most of humanity at any given moment acknowledges is even possible necessarily, or is really truly open to, except perhaps more in traditional societies, where some of the forgetfulness around our true nature may not have been completely obliterated. But looking at the spiritual is often a last resort for many people. So we go to this spiritual level and we clear something, we fix something, we, remove something. I like to use the language of clear or resolve. I like the term resolve and clearing. To me mean like kind of the same thing. We're not necessarily, when we talk about that, we're not talking about removing something. We're not clearing something as in we're taking something away from you that was held in this particular fear way in your soul. Because I don't really believe that energy can be removed in that sense. I really believe it gets transformed, transmuted, or resolved. And in a spiritual clearing, you then gain wisdom from that particular original problem or karma. You don't obliterate it, you just turn it into something that's part of your wisdom now rather than a problem. Okay, so say this happens at the spiritual domain of your being. Say that, again, using the four-body system idea. I know this is a complex, it sounds like I'm talking about some sort of engineering project or physics here. This could be a multi-week kind of course to talk about here. So if something gets corrected, cleared, resolved at the spiritual level of your being, this is not necessarily the same thing as saying that at the physical, emotional, and mental level of your being, you are receptive and open to that spiritual shift. So remember I talked about the four bodies. If there's a shift that happens at the spiritual level, in order for that shift to appear in your life as a change in feeling, perception, a change in concrete circumstances, the physical body, the physical world around you, what you're manifesting, it has to go through the mental, emotional, and physical levels of your being. These are the three densest levels that we talked about out of the four levels. These are also the parts of your being that you have dominion over in this lifetime. Nobody can really change your thinking directly if you don't allow that. No one can change your feeling directly if you don't allow that. No one can really change your physical body unless you allow that. There might be all the great, for instance, food in the world that might be promoting health for you, but unless you eat it, it can't do you any good. Or unless someone does some body work or some medical process on you, unless you are open to that or receive it, it can't really do much good. You could go to, on the mental, emotional level, you could go to therapy, for instance, traditional psychotherapy, for years. And therapists out there will know this all the time, that unless and until you become really ready, authentically ready, available to release, to let go, all of the therapy in the world can't really change your feeling, can't really change your thinking, can't really change your life until or unless you become receptive. So we make the mistake sometimes to think that I'm going to do this spiritual clearing or healing. It's going to take place at the root level, which, yes, is a way of describing from the larger soul perspective. The spiritual level or domain of our being is the root level or a root level. But we think that since it's taken out at the root level, that means our life and circumstances are immediately going to change. Now, I wish that were the case, because then I could start making guarantees to people. If you just, hey, just, I could start charging a lot more too. If I just do this one clearing with me, I can guarantee you that your circumstance, I'm so qualified or so experienced or whatever it is, I could just make these claims what I'm doing, that I can guarantee that that particular circumstance or challenge in your life is going to change in exactly this way, because we've cleared and resolved the root of the issue. And if it's a 1-to-1 ratio of clear the root at the spiritual level, physical life manifests equivalently and changes, then it would make sense that I could guarantee a particular outcome. Now, we all know that I can't guarantee it. Spiritual healing and clearing work cannot guarantee a particular physical outcome ever. Why? Because it has to work its way. The spiritual is just one aspect of our being. Even if we clear the root issue, it still has to work its way through our mental, physical, and emotional part of our being. Let me give you a kind of a stupid but concrete example about this. So the issue of food and eating. Okay, let's just make this example for a second. Say we could go in to do a clearing, and we determined there was some problem in your life that had to do with health or food or not having enough or issues with eating, whatever it might be. And we went in and we discovered, first of all, that there might be subconscious beliefs that you have about that, and worthiness in your physical body, and all of this. There might be past lives you had or that your ancestors had where they died through starvation. So that is leaving an imprint on your being right now. And say we were able to go in and we were able to clear those. Again, we're looking at the root cause from the spiritual perspective, right? So we clear at this level. And if you are receptive and available, which is not always a guarantee a person is, even if they want to be, it's not necessarily a guarantee that they've done whatever appropriate work for them they need to be to become receptive and available at the physical, emotional, mental level. They may experience different thoughts, different feelings about it when they go to eat, when they go to a particular situation where there's food involved. But until they actually make the choice of what am I going to eat or what am I not going to eat in this particular case, they have to make that physical, volitional choice. They have to put it into action to get a different concrete result in their life. Until they do that, it doesn't really matter if we've cleared so-called the root of the issue, because the root of the issue has to be brought down into physical choice. Same thing can happen in a relationship. We can clear the so-called spiritual root of the issue. All relationships are karmic, so everyone we've been in relationship with, especially the people closest to us in the positive or negative way, people we've hurt the most, people who have hurt us, parents, children, exes, spouses, current partners, all of this, they're all karmic relationships in the sense that we've had many past lives with them. So we can do, and one of the wonderful things I love to do in my work is to do karma clearing work in relationship, where we can clear shared lifetimes we've had, hundreds of lifetimes with this particular individual. We can clear issues that never got resolved, like harm they've caused us, harm we've caused to them, all of that. But can that guarantee a particular result in the current relationship? No. Why? Because if we are still unwilling to open our hearts, to forgive, to release, to do our actual active, conscious, emotional work, the spiritual work cannot have any concrete benefit. Now, because of these four bodies, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all interrelate and all interact with each other. Most of the time, unless someone's really, really closed, most of the time when we do a relationship clearing, like I just mentioned, people will feel a difference in their hearts. They'll sense something about themselves, because all of us have to be at least slightly open, or else we couldn't even really exist. We have to be, we are one with spirit, and the fact that we can breathe, and the fact that we woke up this morning means that we are still in rapport with and allowing that energy of spirit at some level. So most people do feel something, but to the degree to which we have opened ourselves through our own conscious work, to that degree we become receptive to the things of spirit. So this is why some of the cliches of like, people say, oh, I'm just going to try, that person over there, they're going to try to just meditate all their problems away, right? I hear that quite a bit as a counterpoint or a resistance to spiritual healing work at all. How is that person just going to meditate all their problems away? Well, meditation has a primary property of connecting us to the spiritual level of our being. And however, that does not necessarily mean that we are doing our conscious, mental, emotional, and physical work. We see this all the time with meditation. Meditation can have a shadow side to it, where it can cause people to not necessarily gain more mastery into their life, but to dissociate or to spiritually bypass the actual emotional work that they need to do. So if someone's meditating and they're going out and up into their spiritual body, and this is promoted a lot as we're going to go up into our spiritual body beneath all the ripples and waves of the mental body and all the fluctuations, and we're going to go out there where there's absolute stillness, and we're going to connect with that presence, which, by the way, I think is a very healthy potential practice for many people. But if we do that and we don't bring the insights and the revelations that we've had there into, okay, how do I integrate that? How do I use those insights, that stillness in my being, to transform my mind? How do I use that to transform and to see beyond the hostilities I'm holding towards perhaps somebody else? The unforgiveness. How do I look at myself and examine myself more? How do I use that stillness to make better choices at the physical level, right? It's our level of choice in life. What am I going to do? What am I not going to do? Where am I going to go? What am I going to eat? How am I going to use this body to do something that's maybe more aligned with my spiritual destiny, and to not do something else which maybe isn't aligned with my particular destiny? So you see how spiritual level, in meditation, we might connect there, could be very, very healthy in most cases. Connecting somehow spiritually is important. It may not always be through meditation, that's what I'm trying to say. But we do see where people will think that that's an equivalent to doing their forgiveness work, working on their mind, working with their body. You see these subtle spiritual bypassing programs promoted unconsciously through a lot of kind of non-integrated practitioners. As much as I enjoy much of his work, I've seen this, it's kind of irked me to see the work of Bruce Lipton promoting recently, medical doctor, right? He promotes that once you get to a certain spiritual realized level, cleared at the karmic level, spiritual level, that it will no longer matter what you eat. He says that. And to me, that's complete and utter ridiculousness. That is not the case. We are physical incarnated being. It's always going to matter what we eat, how we take care of our physical body. We're not going to bypass that. We're not going to avoid that. We have to work on all cylinders, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, for our lives to be integrated and balanced. So what I was trying to say earlier also with the issue of the eating is that we can do all the spiritual clearing in the world we want around past life, death from starvation, and that might be considered to be the root of the problem. But in the moment, if I'm hungry and haven't eaten for hours or days, the root of that problem is that I have not used my physical body to get some food and put it in my mouth. That is a way of looking at the root of the problem in that moment, right? So there are many ways of looking at root of the problem. And it can vary. There can be many roots. You clear one root at the spiritual level, suddenly the next root shows up at the physical level. Then the next root might show up at the emotional level. We are holistic beings. We are here in this physical world, physical body, for a particular reason, to balance and to look at all of these different gradations of density of our being, to work on them from different perspectives, because this is all about helping us to experience contrast and to bring joy into our lives and into the lives of others by experiencing temporary forgetfulness, temporary programming, clouding everything, and then suddenly we awaken into, once we've forgiven, once we've eaten something that's right for our metabolism, once we've spiritually cleared karma, once we've opened our mind to greater possibilities, all these different levels, the four bodies again, we feel so different. We feel more alive. we feel more in touch with our potential. So this has been a longer video than I anticipated making, but I thought this was an important topic to talk about what is meant by the root cause. That spiritual clearing work alone cannot guarantee a particular outcome, because nobody can really heal your life in spite of yourself. We all have to do, myself included, our spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical work. None of us escape doing that. And so I want to encourage you to be as integrated, as balanced, and to not fly off into the spiritual realm pretending that that's the ultimate reality and forget about the other parts of your healing process. I'm sure if you have any questions, feedback, you want to get in touch with me, please go to my website, clearandconnect.com. Happy to continue the discussion. Till next time, friends, peace and blessings to you. Bye-bye.